Dr. Lillian Agwegbe, your host on this program. We're very excited to continue our conversation with members of the diaspora. We are bringing you a different member of the diaspora every time on this dialogue series. And you know where to find us? You can listen to the podcast on Spotify, on Apple Podcast. You can watch the podcast on YouTube. Find us for clips on Instagram and on Facebook. And remember, like, comment, share, and let somebody know what you enjoyed about this podcast. Every episode, we are talking to somebody different in the diaspora. Why? Because we do not have the same stories. Our stories are very beautiful and our stories are very diverse. How did we get here? What are the blessings of this new land? Have we forgotten about home because we're here? Of course not. What's the beauty of the homeland? And we wrap it up with the benefits of integration. How does home, new and old, benefit from our presence? Today, my guest is Dr. Rael Odengo. Dr. Odengo, you are welcome to the Diaspora Dialogue series with LA.
Thank you so much, Dr. A. It's a pleasure to be within this space and to really, dialogue with you and share my journey with your listeners.
Great. And so we're going to start by getting to know you. Tell us a little bit about who you are, where you're from originally, and what was it like growing up?
Thank you so much, Dr. A. So my name's Dr. Rael Odengo. That's a new acronym. The doctor just came a couple of months ago after I achieved my PhD. But I'm originally from Kenya. I was born in Kenya. And back in the days, back in the late 70s, in the splashing beautiful plantations of tea in a place called Kericho. And then I grew up in Kericho. I went to school in Kericho. I went to high school in Kericho. Then after that, now I transitioned to college in Nairobi. So ideally, the way we have our own setup in Kenya, it's very interesting that, most of the colleges are found in the cities, within the cities, and mainly Nairobi as the big colleges that where, we went to school. So after my college, I began working as a journalist back in Kenya. I was working for the Kenya Broadcasting Corporation. I worked there producing radio programs, focusing on health issues, focusing on issues with disability. Then from radio, I transitioned to really begin our work within the TV news segment of the Kenya Broadcasting Corporation, still really doing a lot of feature programs, really engaging experts to really share more about our environment, the significance of tourism, and how all these important elements really tie to health. So based on my work and my engagement, then there was a project in Kenya known as the Program for Appropriate Technology, PATH. So with that, they were interested in getting someone with a very strong background in radio to really help them work under, a USAID-funded project to produce radio programs to really create a lot of awareness on some of these public health issues that, that cut across, from HIV and AIDS to TB and malaria and family planning. So then I transitioned now to begin working in the private sector. And I worked with PATH for a period of 6 years. Then from then, the Center for Communication Programs, that is Johns Hopkins Center for Communication Programs, wanted someone to also lead their family planning campaigns in Nairobi. They had a Gates-funded project. So the social behavior change communication component of it required a lead, and they did approach me, and I did an interview, and then I was selected to lead the project. So I worked with the CCP then for a period of 1 year in Nairobi. Then in the middle of this, my husband was lucky to get a green card to relocate to the United States. And all this was perfect timing because the CCP contract was actually just for 1 year. Then after that, I was supposed to be, looking for other greater opportunities. Now, but with now my husband getting that opportunity, I talked to the head office in Maryland and asked them that, my husband is transitioning. Would they be open to giving me an opportunity, to work with them while I'm in country? And to be honest, Dr. A, I think they were very happy and they were very okay and open to that idea because I'd done, an incredible job leading the team back in Nairobi through all these social behavior change, campaign efforts that led to an 11 percentage point increase in the uptake of family planning services. So with that, I transitioned to come to the US. And that is how actually I landed in Maryland. But the larger part of my family lives in California.
That
Yes.
is so impressive and so much there. I was really fascinated listening to you and going to primary school, secondary school, and then going into the city, Nairobi, to go to college and doing all this work, transitioning from radio and doing social behavioral change, working in public health. Did you know, you said your husband won the lottery and that's how you came to the US?
Yeah.
But growing up, were you ever fascinated with coming to live abroad? Did you have it in your bucket list or something like that, that you were going to come and live in the US at some point in time?
Very good question. I never dreamt of that. And to be honest, we lived in a community whereby we just knew the environment where we are, especially when growing up, like in Kericho, it's more or less like a rural side of Kenya. So you best, when you actually move from Kericho to Nairobi, it's like that's a huge transition. That's the typical context. So I would really read more about America, watch American movies and everything. But it never dawned on me that at some point in time, I might actually go and live there. So, all this really happening along the way, we kept on just telling ourselves, this is actually God. This is God working on our way to get all these greater opportunities, to be able
Oh
to
my
land there.
goodness,
Yes.
that is
So,
so awesome. And
yeah.
so since you didn't have this dream to come and live in the US, but you'd also been watching all of these films. You're working with the Centers for Communication, which has a head office in Maryland. We're familiar with the United States, of course, before you came. Now, in
Yeah.
coming, what was your cultural shock, if I may say so? What sort of things were like, yeah, this is the US, but what sort of thing was like, wait, is this US? What was those experiences like for you?
Now that's a big, huge part of my story. So when I came, and I came from a very normal culture whereby and I didn't share more about my background that, I'm married and I have three daughters. I have my eldest daughter, then I have a set of twins. So, when you're working in Kenya, you enjoy a lot of privileges where you have people who can even support you with kids and everything. And then now shock on me when now I relocate to the US. And at first, even my husband's relatives in California were telling me, are you sure you're going to begin a new job and you're going to really take care of these kids? It's difficult, this is America. I said, no, I think I'll be able to manage and everything is going to be, just normal. And that was the toughest part. That's when I realized I'm in a different world. I'm in a world where I'm alone because even when I moved to Maryland, my husband was still in California and I moved with the kids. And I was like really supporting them through that journey. It was very difficult, very difficult. Trying to, juggle going to work, trying to ensure that, you find childcare for your children, trying to come back in the evening to ensure that you really support them, and even to really just find that space for yourself wasn't really easy. That was the biggest, toughest really part for me in that I wasn't really prepared for that transition. And I think I did not even pay a lot of attention that, what is it that you need to do differently? You're moving from Kenya where you have a lot of support. You have a nanny who can be there for your kids. You can balance your work very well. And at the same time, you are there for your children in that there's someone giving them a lot of help when you're not available. But here you come to a culture whereby you have to take that full responsibility on your own. It was really tough for me. And I think it took a long time for me to really adjust to that system and just reach a place whereby, find that this is something normal that I would need to live with for the rest of my life while I'm still in the US.
Thank you so much for sharing. Somebody will say, "Oh, but the nanny's here. What do you mean?" And not knowing the difference in the proportion of your income you spend on nanny support at home, because you had the nanny back home. I mean, and the proportion of income you spend on your money here. So I also have had the opportunity to raise a child abroad and to raise a child in the United States. And when my younger daughter was born, I just used to be like so fascinated with the whole experience because I was the cook, I was the driver, I was the nanny, I was the housekeeper. And you're like, how did this happen?
Yes.
where you're the person waking up in the morning, prepping the child and driving to take the child. But because the cost of labor is
Mhm.
different
Mhm.
in the home country, you can readily afford those things from your paycheck without
Exactly.
breaking the bank. But when you
Yes.
come here and you do your paycheck and you can say, yes, but the nanny is here, but the proportion of paying for a nanny here to
Yes.
the proportion of income that you earn is
Yeah.
not something that makes that option readily available.
Very true. It's not readily available. And you find that at the end of the day, you are not going to break even. Either you are working to take for someone to take care of your children, but at the same time, you're working. So how do you really draw the balance? And those are issues that are critical. That I wish I told myself every time, Dr. A, that I wish I had known. I would have done it differently. But it's a good lesson I've learned. And I'm like,
What would
every
you have
time
done differently? Sorry, I mean, I really don't want to lose that. What would you have done differently?
do you remember I had a family back in California? So, and my brother-in-law was very clear that probably these kids would be okay, like beginning for the first couple of months here before you move to Maryland with them. But being a mother, and you just know the way we get attached to our families and and the children and everything. I was like, I cannot go and start working and my children are away from me. They just have to be next to me. But now having made that transition to come, thinking of now taking them back was another different ballgame. So really thinking of how do you really plan for the unexpected issues that really come along your way, that you ensure that your transition is smooth, that you have to really make some adjustments in terms of the values and beliefs that we hold so dearly in our hearts, that these things just don't impact you, but they also impact your children. Okay. Because
Uh,
remember that even that check, you might only think of the financial value, but also look at the children. You are busy working, and there's just no time at all. If you look at it critically, that you miss that element. It's more of like frustration at the end of the day, instead of just building that great smooth bond with your children all the time.
and it depends again on who your neighbor is. So when I moved from Texas to Maryland, my
Mhm,
neighbors were Ethiopians,
mhm,
and they had younger kids, two kids that were younger than my kid. And
mhm.
really, my house was their second home, and I didn't bat an eyelid because of my
Yeah.
culture. And
Mhm.
so they would just come and stay, and I didn't have any problems feeding them,
Yeah.
taking care of them, staying in my house and everything. But come to find out that it's just because we were both Africans, really. And
Yes.
because I was Nigerian and I was used to doing that,
Mhm,
but it's not something that naturally sits. What
mhm.
is it about the homeland that you miss? And you're like, I wish they could bring this into America. I wish this was part of something that was readily available here in the United States.
I miss that sense of community. And we live as a village back home. That you get home, you arrive, you get to your village, as much as you're going to your mom or your own house. That is not the end of it. The larger community is part of your home, whereby
Mhm.
you can easily walk into someone's house, talk, laugh, smile, and just have that sense of like someone really knows who you are. That
Hmm.
is something that I miss a lot, a lot. And I'm like, sometimes how do I even make up for it? And even for my children, you have to really think, oh, either you take them to, when they were still young, I would take them to a daycare center, or you ensure that, you have to, if there's no school, you have to ensure that you're not even going to work. You have to really spend time with them. It's not, they don't have that openness of playing wherever they can play. Those are the key elements that they're missing. And you'll find that they want to become more individualistic all the time. And I'm like, no, we are a community. We are together all the time. And then you have neighbors that before even, they gel or accept you takes a while. Until I'm like, if you cannot realize I'm your neighbor, then I just give up. Then let me also now think of being on my own. Those are special moments I miss all the time. And to be honest, Dr. I keep on saying that I need to be taking my children back home for them to realize that there's a larger sense of people being together than these people being in isolation. Because you'll find that sometimes they're at home, they only want to be in their rooms. And I'm like, wait a minute, that is not the way we stay. and rooms are for people to sleep. We are together, you know, and I feel like they're transitioning a bit because of their acculturation and everybody wanting to be, you know, in the Western world. But I want them to realize that there is more to you. There's a larger community that really supports you and believes in you.
It's so interesting what you're saying about your children wanting to be on their own, because my younger daughter, who was born here and raised here, and sometimes, you know, when I tell her somebody's coming to stay in our house, she just rolls her eyes at me and she's like,
Yes.
oh my
Yeah.
goodness, somebody's coming
Yeah.
again. And I look
Mhm.
at her and I laugh because I'm like, oh, wait,
Mhm.
somebody's just coming and they're going. I grew up with relatives living in my house 24/7, you
Yeah.
know, 365 days of the year. People who lived in our house, we didn't even get notice when somebody was coming. People just showed up. Not to say that one way or the other, one is right or one is wrong, but they're just saying that this is because my dad was like one of the older people in the family, and my mom as well. So people
Mhm.
would just show up and
Mhm.
you just stay or come and visit and stay. And then, you know, so I always get fascinated when she's like, is somebody coming to stay again? I'm like, child, you have no idea.
I know. And then another question that comes is, for how long? And I'm like, where is that question coming from? You know, that is part of our family, you know. And those are key dynamics. I think I've just struggled with that, you know, looking at my roots and what really defines who I am. And even thinking of those key elements as I try to raise my children in America is a bit interesting. Every time I say, okay, they're learning, and I need to use this space to really educate them and let them know why this is really, really important. Why it's important to have family. Why anyone visiting is not just visiting for any, but these are people that really help or define our lives in one way or the other.
I like all of those things you're incorporating into the culture, but is there anything from how you were raised that you're giving up? Like, okay, fine, this doesn't work anymore, or we shouldn't be doing this now. What have you kept? Like, you were raised in Kenya and then you raised your children here, as it were. What did you keep, you know, from the cultural practices, and what have you, you know, said, no, let's do this differently, if anything?
To be honest, looking at both and trying to balance the dynamics, you know, there's this land, I don't know how it happens to you, Dr. A. It's because of the environment, and I think where we live in that, I think we live in a predominantly white community, and they go to a school where the population seems to be more of a predominantly white, you know, population segment. So they learn all these new ideas, like, you know, we have sleepovers, we have, I don't know what, we have so many other things. So that has been a very different dynamic for me to really now accept in that. People just want to have sleepovers. And I'm like, I also need us to spend time with as a family here. At what level do we draw the balance? You know, but I'm learning that, okay, I'll accept some I will not be able to accept, but I really need to know who you're going to, because we live in a system whereby people are, you know, it's a culture whereby we are not safe when our kids are out there. So how will your child really be safe when they're in, you know, someone's house? So really thinking of those critical issues, that how do you really balance this new norm here, and thinking of where you really come from. Then another important bit is that, you know, just thinking of the values of respect, thinking of, you know, being respectful to your elders, being appreciative of what is really around you, you know, engaging with people in a more, you know, way that you show them that there are traditional values that really mean a lot to you, and not that you're trying to, you know, be a child from the Western, you know, Western system. We have, you know, children here who don't care, and they look at you as an adult and they don't think like, you know, you are seated, and, you know, a child is seated and an adult is standing. I'm like, no. Those are critical elements that we should not forget. We need to treat adults with respect. We need to know that even if you don't know them, but we need to give them that space to ensure that you are according them the respect and values that, you know, that they hold or uphold in this society. I hear a lot of, I don't care, I don't know. We do not, we care. From where we come from, we care. The onset is we care. No matter where someone comes from, we begin with you care. So they don't care. And those are things that will not really work in our house. you might actually think of leaving them at the door, but not when you come inside this house. So really trying to draw that balance and dynamics and using each and every space to really teach them has been, quite an uphill task, I must say.
That is so interesting. And it takes me growing up. I'm talking about when you say, we care, you can leave that at the door. But when you're coming, we care in here, different. I had some similar but a counter experience growing up in Nigeria, where it was that I think my brothers sometimes tended to have this women don't have voices because that's the culture. But in our house, our parents allowed the women to have voices. So they had sisters who had voices. So it was really very interesting for them to sort of balance that narrative of, outside women don't have voices, but hey, I have sisters who who have voices and who speak for themselves. But that's how the culture, and I think there's something about the social behavior change that you do, where sometimes society says something, but the individual culture at home, you do something different.
Different, yes. And I think those are the key great values that I love about this country, that really empowering and giving women that voice, that, you really need to believe in yourself. You need to believe in the space that you are in, and you need to believe in what you do. And I think I keep on echoing all those sentiments that, you have the strong foundation. You have a space to really thrive as a woman, that when you make decisions from an informed choice. And when you're making those decisions, you need to believe in yourself, and that you have the voice that has been, you've paved for yourself. That this is an environment you can grow as a woman and thrive in even a better style than when you're back at home. Because everybody will say, why do you not treat your children this way? Why would you let your child? I'll say there are elements that they can say no to, but there are elements that I would also not let them just say no to because they don't care. The don't care element is what I really don't accommodate. But when you say, you need to really reflect before you engage or interact with someone. But you have a nice way to say no to someone that, okay, unfortunately, I'm unable to do that because of 1, 2, 3 reasons. But don't just say you don't care, because
Absolutely.
you're really informed, and you speak from a voice that represents who you are and the power you hold as a woman.
Oh my goodness, that's so awesome. So we looked at the beauty of the homeland, how we're able to belong and we have a sense of community and all of that. Let's look at the blessings of the new land. We talked a little bit about the challenges of having to raise the kids all about yourself. But what are the triumphs? What would you say are some of the things that you think have come to pass just because you are in this new land? There's opportunities that otherwise will not have come to pass if you were somewhere else, perhaps.
Good. And that's a good point. So maybe I'm looking at it from my whole entire, family perspective. I think, it's just a different environment whereby you live under the rule of law. I think we grew up also with the stories you do hear that, in America, there are certain things you cannot just do. So probably, I think the policies really more or less discipline us to really try and do what is right, and to also help our children, grow up really believing in themselves and trying to really do what is right. And then the educational opportunities too, I think have been great for me too. I never dreamt of actually doing a PhD, but to be honest, I think the system has paved way for me to be able to do it even in a more seamless way when you're working from home and you're able to really balance your work and also support your children and also support yourself. And also even for the children too, I think there are great, educational opportunities. They do a lot of, athletic, and they do a lot of sporting activities. My eldest daughter plays volleyball, and she's looking at not playing it in college though, but those are part of the activities that really keep her busy. Then the twins do competitive swimming, so they are looking at really growing and do engaging in this competitively beyond just just a high school or anything. So I think these are great opportunities. We never had opportunities to swim back at home, and I call myself a swimmer, but to be honest, Doctor, I cannot swim. That is one thing I'll tell you. But I'm happy when I see this talent that is nurtured through these great opportunities that they have, mastered here in America too. And also just the expression of them as women. I look at how they grow and I sit back and I smile. And I'm like, with this pathway, I'm not worried. You are setting your own trajectory. That the future is clear if you know what your goal is. So just key pointers and reminders that you are in a very good space, that you know what you're supposed to do, you know how to present yourself, you know how to articulate what you want, and use it right at the right time.
And that's the key word, a very good space, as you're talking about it, you know, particularly for the kids. I remember going to concerts for my child when she was in elementary school.
Mm-hmm.
They'll have a band.
Yeah.
Elementary school students, middle school students, they have a band. It's an orchestra. It's a full-blown performance.
Yeah.
They are playing pieces using musical sheets. You know, I'm like, God. My daughter does cheer. She's a cheerleader now, and we go to performances. And each school has their own stadium. A school having its own stadium.
Exactly. Yes.
You know, and you have all of these opportunities, like you said, for them. And it's something else you said about, you know, working from home and doing your doctoral program. I did my bachelor's degree in Nigeria, and I don't remember having classmates who were working.
Yes, at all. At all.
You know, I mean, things may have changed now, but people go to work and go to school. Either formal work, either people who are working in offices or people who are working in fast food joints. I mean, we will have summer break and we will have summer jobs, and people will work during the summer break.
Yeah.
But to be working while going to school at the same time
was unheard of. Yeah. And even talking of that one, and that's one thing too that I appreciate about the system here, that in America, when you're 14, you're able to work. You see? And that has been a great, my eldest daughter, she's just 16. She's a go-getter. And I look at her and I said, this would have been a space that you would not have enjoyed back at home, in that when she turned 15, she took some lifeguard, certification courses, and now during summer, she's looking forward to working. She worked last summer. She's already started working this summer at that early age, and thinking of being responsible, because sometimes they would want you to buy them things and you're like, we need to think of spending our money wisely. But when they're in that space whereby they have their own money, now they're thinking of how to budget for that money on their own. And I'm realizing some of the demands they used to put on me, they don't actually put on themselves. So think of those leadership responsibilities, Dr. A, that I think it's a system that really allows our children to really grow. When they know what they aim for and what they want to achieve at the end of the day, then it really becomes easy for them. My 14-year-olds are already saying, Mom, we look forward to working. We want to start earning our own money. I'm like, oh, it's okay. Don't worry. The right time is coming. And you will start working and you'll become more responsible on your own. Yeah.
Awesome. That is so beautiful. Let's talk about the benefits of integration. Sometimes people at home say, you should come back home if you're really interested in the home, and then people in the new land can say, but why are you here anyway? So when we think about it from your own lenses, what's the benefit of integration? How's your new land benefiting from you being here? How's your old land benefiting from you being here?
That's a very good question. So the key benefits to my new land in that, to be honest, we are hardworking. We come from a very hardworking community, and African studies show, we see it amongst ourselves. Dr. Ahab, the hard work you put into, to have the best all the time, and we come here with a culture of really hard work. And it's a way that, we integrate into this culture to really make our lives better. And at the same time, boost the economic or the circles that we really work with internally. So I think we aim for the best, and we integrate to really build an economy that really thrives. And that hard work just doesn't help or make our lives better. It also helps, back at home in terms of investments, in terms of just helping people. Because remember, we are a village. I don't know how it works in Nigeria, Dr. A, but for us, it's actually a village. When you're in America, you are not just there for you and your family. You have a larger family back at home that also looks upon you, And looking at the poverty levels too, we have kids, who just need a lot of support to go to school. I'm a strong believer in education that, through education, I think we can change. We can change the trajectory of all these poverty levels that we grew up in and make our system better. So really with being in this space, it has allowed me, an opportunity to really support a lot of children back home just to go to school and be able to make a difference in their lives too. And also just, grow those economies back there. And also just share that knowledge that, if I can make it, you can also make it. These are great opportunities that we all should long for. We grew up not knowing that this is a space we could belong or live in, right? But if I did it, you can also do it. So really using such even spaces like, your diaspora dialogue to really encourage people to work hard, because there are greater opportunities, not just back in our homeland, but also back in, spaces like here in the US. And also, just engaging with, the beauty of integration is that being in America, I'm having the chance now to talk to you, to work with you, to share my story in your space. It wouldn't have happened.
Absolutely.
Would it have happened me being in Kenya and you being in Nigeria?
Absolutely. Yeah. That is so fascinating. Absolutely. Yes, I wouldn't have heard your story if you were still in Kenya. You wouldn't have heard my story. I wouldn't be having this conversation if I was still in Nigeria. Would all be different, but we have this opportunity now to contribute to the narrative of the world, because the world has become a global village, to share our stories and to really see what's going on. And as we're wrapping up, I wanted to ask about how you stay connected with the diaspora community. And I know you said you're supporting some people to get education back in Kenya, but here in the US, how do you stay connected with the diaspora? So how do you keep your culture going? Are you homesick, or how often do you go home?
Those are great questions. So I'll start by, to really, as I have mentioned, I'm a strong believer in community. So luckily where we live, we have one of the parents or the neighbors, they come from Uganda. Then we have a family that is also from Ethiopia. They moved there, I think, less than a year ago. Then we also have another family from China. So remember that we do share a lot of cultural, just relationships in terms of culture, the community sense of it. So we've always thought of really coming together. So we operate like a small knit circle within where we live, in that we are trying to really emulate what we do back home. At home, you have that culture whereby when you run out of salt, you do not run to the shop. You do not go to Walmart, but you run to the neighbor to give you salt, because that is how we live. When you run out of tomatoes, you do not go back to the shop, but you go to. So we've actually built that here, in that we can easily work together. We normally have, sometimes lunch, dinner, or breakfast together, just to bond and share that common sense of us as a community. We've extended that family, that we don't care which countries we come from, but really bringing that sense of togetherness has really helped in terms of just living each day and each moment. And I really appreciate it. Sometimes I tell myself, without them, I don't know how life would have been, but that has really helped us really grow and set that strong foundation. And then beyond that too, we do have like a Kenyan community. We have the Kenyan women in the United States. So we do have like a WhatsApp group of almost 750 Kenyan women from, I think, Maryland to PA to Virginia. Yeah, I think that's the largest. Yeah, that's the largest, up to Virginia. So that is also another space. And then we also have Facebook, whereby we have this, Kenyan communities and groups that I've been part of. I have not done so well, to be honest, when it comes to really that in-person engagement with other people, especially members of the diaspora from other African countries. And I'm looking for a space to really grow and do a lot of, in-person connections and engagements, and, to hear and engage with people in a more different space, other than just, connecting virtually or through work. And then also just sharing a lot of sentiments, from home. I listen to a lot of news from home, a lot of music from home, just to ensure that I don't forget my roots in my car right now, it's a strict policy that I only play Swahili music because that is my
Wow.
that's my language, you know.
Mhm.
And I use it too to help my child. A bad thing, my kids cannot speak Swahili as they used to really help them understand that this is part of our language that we really need to think of, you know, also having as part of the languages we speak on an everyday basis.
Oh my goodness, that is so, so nice. My daughter was giving me the evil eye the other day. She's
Yeah,
like, are you about to start teaching
yeah,
me your language now? Isn't
yeah.
it a little bit too late? You should have started earlier on. And it's so fascinating. I remember the first time I told my daughter to go to my neighbor Amanda's mom and get some onions. She just
Yes.
gave me the evil eye, like, what in the world?
But that is the essence of life. And that's what, you know, they don't even realize it, that is really important. But that is how we grew up, and that's what defined who we are, you see. So, but
Exactly. I'm like,
how do you encourage them, doctor? I would love to know when they roll and give you that eye. What do you?
I told her, I said, go. She's just looking at me like, I'm like, go. I just need one onion right now. I'm not
Yes,
getting into the car and
yeah,
driving to the store to go
yeah.
and get one onion right now.
Oh.
Go and ask her for an onion, please. And you know, she just like, seriously. But then that's what the same thing. Amanda's mom is cooking and she's run out of oil and she's like, Amanda, go and ask if they have some oil on their. It's just about. You can say, "Oh, I should have known I needed onion. I didn't know I had run out, and I just needed one
Yes,
onion." And it's
exactly.
like getting
Yeah.
into the car and driving into the store to go and get an onion. You know,
Mhm.
it's like that's just the beauty of just being here and being able to be yourself. You know, and be
That's
part
true.
of the community.
Yeah.
Dr. Odengo, it's been really wonderful listening to you, learning about growing up in Kenya, coming here, landing a job before you came to the US. That doesn't always work for everybody, you
It
know,
doesn't.
but
Yeah, it doesn't. Yes. Yeah.
navigating, raising your children all by yourself, doing all the work, keeping the culture, you know, having, letting your children be themselves, but letting them know the difference between wanting to be independent and not caring, and
Yeah.
looking at the blessings of the new land, really, all the opportunities we have with education, the beauty of the homeland, the connectedness that we feel, and then the benefits of integration, how our work ethics are making a difference in our new community, and how
Yeah.
the income that we earn here is making a contributing significant contribution to our homeland. Before
It
we
does.
go off, anything you want to tell me about your diaspora journey, being here and being home that we haven't spoken about? We can listen to it now.
And maybe just one challenge that I really struggled with when I moved, that I came from a deeply religious background and community. And when I came here, I just realized that, oh my goodness, it's not the same. It's not really the same. And you really need to find a way of creating that space for you to ensure that this is a culture that you really try to, you know, to emulate and ensure that it becomes really consistent, and even for your children too. I think that's one downside of, I just feel like I still miss that, treating Sunday as a holy space for me, because with these kids doing all these competitive sports, to be honest, Dr. A, sometimes you just don't also find that space to really go to church. So how do you really balance, you know, both sides? How do you really raise your children to really know that there's a God that we worship, and that really, God really defines our lives and what we really do, because they live in a space whereby that is not really spoken a lot about.
Mm-hmm.
So those are some of the, you know, the challenges and ups and downs. But beyond that, I think I've learned to really, you know, learn more about the world. That the world exists just beyond where I grew up in. We share a lot of similarities, but
Mm-hmm.
also just learning to accept people the way they are. That, you know, not everybody is the same. Even the neighbors who behave differently, they're not doing it intentionally, but it's all about how they were raised. You know, the way my grandmother raised me, the way my mother raised me is not really the way other people have been raised, you know. And so really that sense of acceptance that you're in a different space, the world is globalized, and meeting people where they are, I think, is one thing that each and every day I'm like, you know, I work with Dr. A. I know she's from Africa though, but I cannot say that she understands me 100%, but really
Mm-hmm.
buying that space to really meet you where you are. then most importantly too, even in our workspaces, I just feel like sometimes people really struggle how to integrate our culture within that workspace. The people don't understand us. I don't know if you've been to these places, Dr. A, where people just tell you that, oh, you have an accent. And I'm like, where is that really coming from? That should not be the first thing. Can you think of my work and my ethic and my output instead of thinking of my accent, And then being in a space sometimes whereby people just want to judge you a lot. There is actually a lot to that person beyond some of the negative traits. So I think those are some of the key dynamics that I've learned to really adjust to here in the US. And when someone really speaks about my accent right now, I take it so positively because they listen to you, then the next thing they'll ask you, which country are you from? I'm like, okay, where is that really coming from?
I know, right? I know.
Yeah, and they're like, I wasn't even expecting that as the next question, but you're like, okay, I'm an immigrant from Kenya. So right now I try to really brand my identity that I was not born here, but I'm an immigrant from Kenya. But I belong to the right space, and in all that I do here locally. Yes,
it is so rich and so fascinating and so interesting. Yes, I also get that, and I'm always very fascinated when people are stereotyping you and like, oh, you're foreign born, and I'm like, I actually went to graduate school here, so I do have my bachelor's degree from a Nigerian university, but my master's and my doctorate are actually from American University. So I trained here. So when I'm bringing, you can't use one identity. It's just like how we're saying this, telling all our stories because we have different stories. It's also to do that narrative of, oh, so you're an immigrant, and so therefore. You can't say so therefore because I'm an immigrant. There's so many things that being an immigrant doesn't tell you. All it just tells you is that I wasn't born here. That's all it tells you. It doesn't tell you it doesn't tell you the quality of my education. It doesn't tell you the quality of my upbringing. It doesn't tell you my background. It doesn't tell you my work experience. It doesn't tell you so many things.
Exactly. And it doesn't tell you the actual Dr. A. You see, you don't hold that doctor as just something. That is your title that you've rightfully earned, and for you to get to that level, it shows that you're not someone who's just from Nigeria. It shows that you're someone who believes and has values and got to that level because of your hard work and ethic. Yeah. But it tends to be, it comes as an afterthought, They look at it is something I've struggled with, but I'm living with it so positively now. Like, oh yes, I'm actually from Kenya. That comes in. No, I'm from Kenya. If you want to ask more about Kenya, then the next thing probably just arrange for a trip to Kenya. But for me, I'm actually from Kenya.
Yes, let's arrange for a trip to Kenya. And earlier, when you were talking about, your faith and coming in, I learned that lesson while I was doing my master's. It was very interesting because we had this class. I think it was my group processes class or one of my classes. And public health is very collaborative. And so you have to do group work. But this particular class, the professor said, you guys need to meet outside of school. That in public health, you have to do a lot of negotiation. So I don't want any of those meetings. We've had a couple of those where you come early before your class and you meet. Or well, we were graduate students, so we couldn't stay after class because our classes usually ended at 10 p.m. But most of the time, we plan to come early and meet, before class. And the professor said, you guys need to meet outside of school. So I want you guys to negotiate a time and a place outside of school. And when it came to negotiating, everybody chose Sunday morning. I was so fascinated because I was like, nobody goes to church on Sunday morning. And everybody, I was the only one who was like, apparently I was the only one who went to church on Sunday morning.
Yes.
It turned out that Sunday morning was the time that worked for everybody. And I was just like, oh, this is interesting.
I know.
But it was part of the negotiation. We had to agree. That was what majority of the people were comfortable with, was Sunday morning. And so we are.
So you had to make your own adjustments along the way to accept some. And even and then when it comes to Easter, this is a special celebration back home. It is. And then you come to a community. I remember my first year where I was, for me, I knew that, okay, this is something that is globally done, to be honest, doctor. And then you get into it, it's actually not even a holiday. And I'm like, wait a minute. It's not a holiday? What do you mean it's not a holiday? Yeah, this is Easter, for heaven's sake, from Good Friday. Oh my goodness. Yeah. The shocks. And I'm like, oh, they look at you and they're like, oh my goodness, where is she really coming from? They don't really understand that those are part of what we really believe in. Like, this is a holy period for us. Yes.
Absolutely. Dr. O, it's been so interesting talking to you, getting to learn from you and your culture, and being able to have your story out there as part of the series of different tapestry of how we are beautifying the world by our stories, our presence, and our contributions. Thank you so much for joining us, and I look forward to continuing to work with you. Dr. O and I are both public health practitioners. We're members of the Maryland Public Health Association, so we're going to be connecting after this. But I really learned a lot from having you on this series. And to you, our listeners, and to you, our viewers, you're listening to, watching the Diaspora Dialogue series with LA, coming to you with a different member of the diaspora, really sharing about the blessings of the new land and the beauty of our homeland, and really the benefits of integration. We encourage you to like, share, and comment, and let us know what resonates with you. Do you remember any part of this was like, oh my goodness, I had a similar experience when I first moved here? Or yes, this is what we used to do at home. We want to hear your story. We need to tell our stories ourselves, because if we do not, others will tell our stories for us, and those stories cannot be guaranteed to be accurate when somebody else is telling it for us. Until I come your way again, I'm Dr. Lillian Agbeegbe. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Bye.